It's my honor to now introduce our keynote speaker. Like me, she's an alum of Mercy Home. In fact, she spoke on this very stage at this event back in 2005 when she graduated from the University of Tampa. She became a successful professional in forensic accounting, ultimately being named a partner in her firm. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute honor to welcome Natasha Perssico Escobedo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Guests, members of the Leader Council, Mercy Home staff, and our recent graduates. I am so honored and happy to be here on this joyful occasion. Graduates, I know what it took for you to reach this milestone, and I hope you are so proud of your achievement. You know, one thing I've come to learn over the years is that none of us succeeds entirely on our own. Our successes are made possible by the support of others. And that's a good thing, because the fact that we have people in our lives helping us to realize our greatest potential is a gift. A gift that meets a basic human need, the need for community. Mercy Home creates a community for all of us, a community that was invested in my well-being and success more than 20 years ago. The same community that is invested in you today. You know, the day I sat down to begin work on this speech was the day I attended my oldest daughter's first grade music recital. As I sat in the audience, oh my gosh, I just felt so proud of her. And I was overcome by just immense gratitude. I turned to my mother-in-law and I said, "There is no greater joy than knowing your children are doing well and seeing them thrive." Parents in this room, you know what I'm talking about. I'm so happy that they're in a good place. They're part of a vibrant school community. They go on play dates and they have friends. They see me and their father happy and healthy, and they are not lonely children. I know that this life of mine was made possible because Mercy Home has a mission to see its children thrive and succeed and graduate. What an incredible blessing. In contrast, there's no greater sadness than seeing someone you love hurting and incapable of finding joy. That was my mother, Donna. I really loved her, but she had mental and physical problems that significantly debilitated her. And because of these issues, she didn't and couldn't work. She was a chain smoker, she abused medications, and she had an eating disorder that made her obese and chronically ill. I know that my mother loved me and wanted the best for me, but she could just never figure out how to give me the things that I needed to thrive. For a long time, I didn't really have the words to say what was wrong. "Mom is sad" were all the words I had as a child to explain it. I didn't know what to do, and I felt helpless. Looking back, I realized that she was just stuck. She lived a stuck, fear-filled life. And later, I would come to know the reasons why. The traumas that my mom endured and the anxieties they bred paralyzed her, making it impossible for her to take even one small step forward. Instead, she hid from life behind destructive comforts and addictions, and she tried to keep me hidden as well. My mother and I lived off government assistance in a run-down garden apartment in Humboldt Park. And when I say run down, I mean run down. It was not up to code. We had roaches. It was cold. We used the oven for heat. Our neighborhood was unsafe. So my mother kept me inside all the time. She did what she could to keep me from the harm she experienced as a child. But I had no friends, no playdates. My best friend was a television. I didn't know what it was like to be part of a community. I was a lonely little girl. I was also at the center of a contentious relationship between my mother and her mother. Like my mother, my grandmother, Betty Ann, treated me lovingly. In fact, she doted on me. But she suffered from her own mental health issues caused by her own trauma and struggles with addiction. She was constantly verbally and emotionally cruel to my mother. I got all the love, and my mother got all the abuse. That only made things worse for my mom, who felt like a failure for being unable to take care of me. My father, meanwhile, was out of our lives before I was even born. He had been deported to his native Pakistan. By the time I got to kindergarten, I was unable to do many of the other things kids my age could do. I didn't go to preschool, so I didn't even know the alphabet. I couldn't cut with scissors. I didn't know any of the songs that the other kids knew. I didn't even know how to play with the other kids. Things seemed to get better when I got to first grade. When we were approved for a government-subsidized apartment in Logan Square, it was such an upgrade to our living situation. It had radiator heat, and it was in a better school district. Even though our environment improved, my mother's health continued to spiral. She was sleeping all the time, and she was just completely checked out. I missed a lot of school. Because my mother was sick, I'd stay with my grandmother. She didn't have a car and lived far outside of our school district, so she just wouldn't send me to school. On top of that, I was sick a lot because of poor nutrition and asthma. And with no friends, I was still a lonely little girl. On top of this, I had anxiety fueled by my constant worry about my mom and her health. Thankfully, when I was 9, my family was referred to Mercy Home's Friends First mentoring program. For those of you who don't know, the Friends First mentoring program matches a child one-on-one with a well-trained volunteer mentor. And this program was a lifesaver for me. Going on outings with my mentor Sharon and later my second mentor Jen was a much-needed reprieve from the stress and anxiety I was feeling at home. And during that time, Friends First offered us therapy. My mom did one-on-one, and we did family therapy together. It was here that I learned the source of my mother's problems and the extent of her childhood trauma. It all came out in therapy. All the pain. She'd been badly abused and preyed on sexually. She began to use food as an escape and later as a shield. Because of the abuse, she wanted to avoid being seen as attractive. She wanted to avoid being a target. So she ate and ate and ate until she was over 400 pounds. She was committed to her sickness. We experienced a lot of loss and grief during these years. When I was 11, my grandmother died. And then my grandfather, Dale, suffered a stroke right in front of me. He died a few years later. And then my aunt, Valerie, my mom's older sister, succumbed to anorexia. It was a lot to bear. I was heartbroken. And then it was just me and my mom. I started my freshman year at Bonsteuben High School. I was getting pretty good grades. But as my mom's health continued to spiral, I lost focus. I started to skip class, and my grades declined. And that's when my mentor, Jen, encouraged me to move into the girls' home as a resident. Despite the tremendous guilt I felt about leaving my mom on her own 20 miles away, I moved into the girls' home on South Longwood. It was difficult at first. It was a challenge getting along with so many different personalities. And back then, I didn't want to be seen as broken. So I didn't talk about my anxiety. I pretended to be okay. But being away from my mom made my anxiety about what was going on with her worse. I worried about her all the time. I had chronic insomnia and panic attacks, though I didn't really talk about it with the staff. But no matter what roadblocks I may have put up, I was met with a lot of care and empathy. The Mercy Home staff was steady, persistent, and always present. One night, I woke up in a full-blown panic attack. I was shaking. I was so scared. I was just afraid for my mom, but I could not even find the words to say what was wrong. There was an overnight youth care worker named Judy, a very kind older lady. And that night, Judy let me sleep in the great room of the Walgreen home where I lived. She sat next to me while I fell back to sleep. She watched over me that night, and she made me feel safe. In the morning, she made me her famous French toast with cinnamon. Judy was my favorite. I never really got the chance to thank her for keeping watch over me that night, and many others. So Judy, wherever you are, I thank you for your kindness. By way of luck or fate, we had a flip chart in the kitchen that said, "Today I'm feeling blank." And you could choose a card with a feeling on it to complete the sentence. I saw the word resilient. I asked what it meant, and I learned that it meant to remain strong in the face of a struggle. Then I thought, I am going to be resilient. This word has been an anchor for me since that day. I progressed through the program with the academic support Mercy Home provided, like tutors. And Mercy Home made it possible for me to attend Our Lady of Lourdes High School beginning in my sophomore year. I loved everything about that school. And I found grace in attending Mass and singing in the choir. I loved the nuns. I loved my teachers, and I even loved the librarian. I gave back through community service and held an after-school job. I earned trips through Mercy Home's Leadership All-Stars program. I even got to go to Disney World, and yes, it is just as magical as you think it will be. Outwardly, I seem to have it all together, but my internal world was a hot mess. I was depleted, depressed, and anxious. Despite all my progress, I continue to feel hopeless about my mom's health, which just got worse and worse. By my senior year of high school, my mom was not just physically declining, but now cognitively declining as well. Meanwhile, she was taking too many medications, especially tranquilizers. She would triple dose them by taking an extra stash with her to the hospital. And despite the fact that she needed to be on oxygen, she was sneaking cigarettes. My mother was destroying herself. I got so mad about it that one day I took all her extra medications and all her cigarettes and I flushed them down the hospital toilet. She was so mad at me. At the same time, I had been accepted at the University of Tampa in Florida. I really wanted to go. I even earned a scholarship from Mercy Home. But when I told my mom, I could see the fear in her eyes at the thought of me leaving and abandoning her. She was angry and tried to talk me into staying home. Then, on my 18th birthday, she called me, and her voice didn't sound angry. She said, "I just want you to know that I'm so proud of you and that I love you." It was beautiful. It was the best birthday gift I have ever received. And it was the last time that she was lucid. A month later, I was getting ready for graduation. My mom was still in the hospital, so I planned to visit her in my cap and gown after my graduation ceremony. The night before graduation, I was at work. My boss pulled me aside and said that someone from Mercy Home had called and that they were coming to pick me up. Rita Garvin drove up. I knew it was something serious. I got into the car, and Rita said, "I am so sorry to tell you, but your mother has passed." You never forget who tells you something like that. Rita offered to drive me to the hospital, but I just couldn't bear to see my mom. So we went back to the girls' home. There, my best friend, Takara, dragged her mattress into my room and stayed with me all night so I wouldn't be alone. All the staff on duty stayed with me, comforting me. They were all there for me, my community. The next day, a whole group of people from Mercy Home went to my graduation. My friends, my mentor, Mercy Home therapists and staff, whether they were on duty or not. I was incredibly grateful. I was so heartbroken, but I was also relieved in knowing that my mother was no longer suffering. I was a zombie. I just kept trying to put one foot in front of the other. I couldn't make decisions, so Mercy Home made the arrangements for my mother's services. Father Scott did the eulogy, and it was beautiful. Thank you, Father. Mercy Home made it possible for for me to just keep taking steps forward. That summer, I somehow managed to complete an internship, a Mercy Home internship at McKinsey & Company. When the summer ended, Mercy Home staff drove me to the airport to send me off to Tampa. I left in tears. I came back to stay at Mercy Home during breaks, but I really thrived in Tampa. I made deep and meaningful lifelong relationships, especially with my sorority sisters. And in 2005, I graduated with honors and was offered a job in Tampa. But I returned to Chicago and began building a successful career. Now, my first 6 years were in corporate accounting, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I really didn't love it. So I enrolled in DePaul's College of Business to earn an MBA in forensic accounting. While attending a seminar, I met a well-known forensic accounting expert named Barry Epstein. I asked Barry if he would meet with me for an informational interview. And when we met, he ended interviewing me for 2 hours. And then he offered me a job, which I gladly accepted. Now get this. A year into the job, Barry and I were walking downtown, and I looked up and saw a Mercy Home banner on the streetlight. And Barry saw it too. And he turned to it and said, "You know, I donate to that organization." And then I turned to him and said, "You know, I lived there." What a connection. Barry has always been one of my biggest cheerleaders. Because of his encouragement, I've served as an adjunct faculty in accounting at DePaul and Roosevelt Universities. I've earned several certifications. I'm a published author. I provide expert witness testimony in court cases, and I teach peers in the industry. And today, my name is on the door, the firm of Epstein, Knack, Escobedo. Barry is here today, so I just want to say thank you, Barry. I remember a therapist at Mercy Home telling me something that has stuck with me ever since. And she said, I need to value myself as a rare and precious jewel, and to surround myself with people who view me as such. Like Mercy Home staff, Monty, Deneen, Rita, Judy, and so many others. Like Barry, Jen, Sharon, and my friends. And of course, my darling husband, Matthew, a wonderful, supportive man, who incidentally is a great cook. And I'm not saying this is the only reason, but I may have married him for his pulled pork shoulder. We have a healthy relationship built on mutual respect and love. And we have 2 wonderful little girls who just bring us so much joy. In all of this, the most important thing I've learned is the value of community. The notion of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is kind of a fallacy. Yes, hard work is a big part of your success, and taking advantage of opportunities is crucial. But I am here today because the Mercy Home community was there to support me, my well-being, my success, and my healing. That's the entire mission of Mercy Home. Well, Mercy Home, mission accomplished. And all of you are part of this mission. There were so many times when I was just blinded by intense sorrow and anxiety. But Mercy Home showed me that goodness and joy were possible. My Mercy Home community gave me hope for a happier future and encouraged me to take every next step. That, in a word, is resilience. So let's go back to that day I started working on this speech, the day of my daughter's recital, and that little moment that I just really got to savor, and the clarity it gave me. I broke the cycle of pain and despair that had been passed down to me and replaced it with joy, real joy. You know, I believe that my mother is sharing these moments with me, that she's watching me being a mom and living a happy, healthy life. Graduates, you are now in a moment of real joy yourselves. You are here. With all the odds against you, you broke the cycle to launch a great future. Be resilient. Keep taking those next steps forward. Do not get stuck. And remember that as long as you are part of a community, especially our Mercy Home community, you are never alone. Thank you.